Today we're going to practice solving geometry puzzles. And geometry puzzles are very similar to junior proofs. And by junior proofs, we mean they're like proofs, but they're a little bit more simplified. And when we solve geometry puzzles, we can only use information that is given to us, either in the picture or through the description of the problem, or that we can justify using the angle relationships that we've discussed so far. We start by putting it in two columns. We start with what we know, and that's usually called a given. And then every step that we take from there on has to be justified by one of the relationships that we've talked about so far. So let's start with puzzle number 1. And we look at this and we can determine that this is the variable that we need. And we're trying to determine how we can find it. And if you notice that it is a corresponding angle with this part right here, and we're going to call this angle 1, except I don't know angle 1 yet. So what can I do to find angle 1, which allows me to find x? So let's start with the idea that this line that I've highlighted is a straight line or a straight angle which equals 180 degrees. That means that angle 72 degrees, angle 1, and angle 35 degrees are collinear. And that's given. That's from the picture. Then we can say that 72 plus the measure of angle 1 plus 35 equals 180 degrees. And that comes from the definition of collinear. Collinear came from the vocabulary words that we gave when we started this unit, and it also came from the first day of notes that we started angle relationships. So now I can tell you that the measure of angle 1 equals 73 degrees, and I get that by subtracting. So 180 minus 35 minus 72 equals 73 degrees. So now go back up here to our picture and write that the measure of angle 1 is 73 degrees. Now in red is highlighted angle 1 and angle x. So now I know that the measure of angle x is also 73 degrees because those are corresponding angles. And that's the end of the junior proof. We've been able to justify or give proof for the statements that we've made, and by using the properties that we've used so far, we were able to identify the value for angle x. Notice that each statement on the left is matched by a statement on the right to justify what we did. Even when it's something as simple as subtraction, you still have to say how you went from 72 plus the measure of angle 1 plus 35 down to the next step where we got that angle 1 was 73 degrees. Okay, now let's look at puzzle 2. Puzzle 2 is given from this picture, and I've told you that you always have to have proof that your lines are parallel. So we're going to draw that in because it wasn't given to us in words, but you have to have those little triangles on there so that you know that your lines are parallel, because these relationships are only for parallel lines. So we are given that M is parallel to N and transversal CD. Those are definitions from your vocabulary from 2.2a. And that's given to us. I don't have to prove that, it's just part of the problem. So then because it's a transversal, I can say that the measure of angle, and I have to go back and do this. This is 1, 2, and 3. And I can say the measure of angle 1 equals 70 degrees because of corresponding angles. And I'm going to use the symbol for angle. So when you look at this, here's 70 and here's angle 1. So based on the properties of corresponding angles that you've studied, when you have a parallel line cut by a transversal, corresponding angles have the same position with one interior and one exterior. So that's how I can say that angle 1 equals 70 degrees. Now, I can say that CD bisects angle BCE. That's given. That comes from the words in the problem. That means that here's BC and here is angle BCE. So bisects has a very specific definition. Bisects means cuts in half or cuts into 2 equal pieces. So that means that if one piece is 70, then the other piece has to be 70 as well. So that means that angle 2 is 70. And that's the definition of bisector. DEF apostrophe N is just an abbreviation for definition. And that's the definition of bisect. So then we look at right here, and you can see that these 3 angles are collinear. So I can say that the measure of angle 3 plus 70 plus 70 equals 180, and that's because they are collinear angles. That means the measure of angle 3 equals 40 degrees, and I get that from subtraction. So now I know that this is 40. Now, I know that this shape is a triangle, so I can say that x plus 90 plus 40 equals 180, because I know that the angles in a triangle equal 180, and that's called triangle sum theorem. I know this right square means that this is a 90-degree angle. So now I know that x equals 50 degrees by subtraction. So we started way over here with angle 1, and we worked our way around using the different properties that we've discussed so far to identify x. The final puzzle has more angles. So let's start by identifying what we can find. So we're going to identify that Q and M are parallel. That means that J and K become transversals. So that I can have those relationships, I need to know that those are parallel. So let's start with the measure of angle 1. I know the measure of angle 1 equals 70 degrees because it is supplementary angle to angle 110. So I can look right here and see that these two angles are supplementary, and that means that this is going to equal 70 degrees. So I can use all of my properties that I have. So then I'm going to go down here and notice that these two are supplementary. That means the measure of angle 2 is 65 degrees because it is supplementary to 115. So at this point, you can begin to make choices about how you solve for angles. We can solve for number 3 or 4 or 7 right now. It doesn't matter. I can choose any of those directions. I'm just working from the top down, so I'm going to go look at angle 7. The measure of angle 7 equals 45 degrees. And I get that because this is a triangle again. So that means that 180 minus 70 minus 65 has to equal 45. So this is triangle sum theorem. So now I know that 7 is 45. Then I can say that the measure of angle 6 is 45 because it is a vertical angle with angle 7. Then I can say that the measure of angle 5 is 45 degrees because it is a corresponding angle with angle 7. So you can see that this angle and this angle are corresponding. We have to look for all the different pieces that we can find. So then we say, now I've done the whole side of this. So this was 45 degrees and this is 45 degrees. And so I've done all the angles on the right side. So now let's go back and find the measure of angle 4 and the measure of angle 3. The measure of angle 4 is 65 degrees. Sorry, it is not. It is 115. And I get that because it is corresponding to the 115 degree above it. With angle 115. And then the last one, the measure of angle 3 is 65 degrees. Now I can get that two different ways. I can say that angle 3 is corresponding with angle 2, or I can say it's supplementary with angle 4. It doesn't matter. Both of those are valid reasons. So I'm just going to continue with corresponding. And have it corresponding with angle 2. So now we've identified all of the angles using properties that we've discussed so far in this section. This is how you will do the extra credit assignments that is in Canvas. Extra credit means it's not required, but that will help you have practice with both your properties and junior proofs, which is what we will be doing for the next 2 weeks.